The clock struck 3 a.m., and the knock came, sharp and insistent, like a heartbeat against the silence of the night. Ethan bolted upright in bed, his breath catching in his throat. His heart pounded, not from fear, but from the ache of knowing who or what was on the other side of his door. He didn't need to open it to know she was there. He could feel her, the weight of her presence, the echo of her laughter that once filled his small apartment. But she was gone. 5 years gone. Yet, every night, without fail, the knocks came. 3 soft taps, then a pause, then 2 more. Always the same. Always her. Ethan was 32, a graphic designer with tired eyes and a heart that hadn't healed. 5 years ago, he'd been a different man, hopeful, vibrant, planning a future with Lila, his fiancée. They'd met in college, 2 art majors who bonded over late-night coffee runs and shared dreams of opening a studio together. Lila was a wildfire, all bright ideas and infectious energy, her dark curls bouncing as she sketched her dreams into reality. Ethan was her anchor, steady and quiet, content to watch her shine. They were inseparable, until the night a drunk driver stole her from him on a rain-slicked road. She was 27. He was 28. And the world stopped making sense. The first knock came a month after her funeral. Ethan thought it was a neighbor, maybe a prank. He opened the door to an empty hallway, the air cold and heavy, carrying the faint scent of lavender, Lila's perfume. He chalked it up to grief, to his mind playing tricks. But it happened again the next night. And the next. Always at 3 a.m. Always the same pattern. He stopped opening the door after the first week, but the knocks never stopped. They followed him when he moved apartments, from the city to a quiet suburb, as if tethered to his soul. Ethan tried to move on. He dated, briefly, but no one could fill the space Lila left. His friends urged him to see a therapist, and he did, for a while. The therapist called it complicated grief, suggested medication, but Ethan refused. He didn't want to dull the pain. It was all he had left of her. His sister, Mara, was the only one who didn't push. She'd bring him coffee, sit with him in silence, and sometimes ask, "You still hearing her?" Ethan would nod, and Mara would squeeze his hand, her eyes soft with worry. By year 3, Ethan was unraveling. The knocks were louder, more desperate, and he'd started talking to the door, whispering, "Lila, what do you want?" He'd stopped sleeping, his work suffered, and his boss gave him an ultimatum: get it together or lose his job. Ethan didn't care. The knocks were his only constant, a thread connecting him to her. But they were also a torment, a reminder that she was gone, and he was stuck in a life he didn't recognize. One night, driven by exhaustion and a reckless need for answers, Ethan opened the door. The hallway was empty, but the lavender scent was overwhelming, and for a split second, he swore he saw her, Lila, standing at the far end of the hall, her silhouette soft and fleeting. He called her name, his voice breaking, but she was gone. That's when he decided he couldn't keep living like this. He needed to know why she was haunting him. Ethan started researching. He read about grief-induced hallucinations, about spirits tethered to the living by unresolved emotions. He stumbled across a forum where people shared stories of loved ones reaching out from beyond. One post mentioned a medium named Clara, an older woman who lived an hour away and claimed she could bridge the gap between the living and the dead. Ethan was skeptical. He'd never believed in ghosts, but desperation outweighed doubt. He called Clara and made an appointment. Clara's house was a small, cluttered cottage filled with candles and books. She was in her 60s, with sharp eyes and a gentle voice that put Ethan at ease. He told her everything: the knocks, the lavender, the glimpse of Lila. Clara listened, nodding, and then said, "She's trying to tell you something. Spirits don't linger without purpose." She explained that Lila might be stuck, unable to move on because of something left unfinished. But, Clara added, "You're the one keeping her here, too. You haven't let her go." The words hit Ethan like a punch. He wanted to argue, to say he'd tried, but deep down, he knew Clara was right. He clung to Lila's memory like a lifeline, afraid that letting go meant losing her forever. Clara offered to hold a session to contact Lila, but warned it wouldn't be easy. "You'll have to face her," she said. "And yourself." The session was set for the following night, at 3 a.m., when the knocks were strongest. Ethan arrived at Clara's, his stomach knotted with fear and hope. They sat in a circle of candles, Clara guiding him to focus on Lila, to call her name in his mind. The air grew heavy, the scent of lavender filling the room. Then, Clara's voice softened, and she said, "She's here." Ethan's eyes stung as he felt her Lila, not just a memory, but a presence, warm and familiar. Clara spoke for her, her voice steady but thick with emotion. "She says she's sorry for leaving you. She didn't want to go. But she's been knocking because you're not living, Ethan. You're stuck, and she can't rest until you're free." Tears streamed down Ethan's face. He asked, through Clara, "Why 3 a.m.? Why the knocks?" Clara paused, then said, "It's when you propose to her, isn't it? At 3 a.m., under the stars, after a night of painting together. She's reminding you of the love you shared, not the pain." Ethan hadn't told Clara about that night, the moment he'd slipped a ring on Lila's finger in their tiny dorm room, both of them laughing through tears. The memory flooded back, and with it, a wave of guilt. He'd been so focused on losing her that he'd forgotten how to honor her, how to live the way she'd wanted him to. Clara guided Ethan to speak directly to Lila. He poured out everything, his anger, his grief, his love. "I don't know how to do this without you," he whispered. Clara's voice came again, softer now. "She says you already know how. You're an artist, Ethan. Create. Live. Love again. That's what she wants." The session ended, and the air felt lighter, the lavender fading. Clara told Ethan that Lila's spirit might not knock again, but it was up to him to let her go. He drove home in a daze, the weight of 5 years shifting inside him. That night, at 3 a.m., the knocks didn't come. For the first time in years, Ethan slept. The weeks that followed were hard. Ethan started small, picking up his sketchbook for the first time since Lila's death. He drew her, not as a ghost, but as she'd been, vibrant, alive, her eyes full of dreams. He started therapy again, this time ready to face his grief. He reconnected with Mara, who cried when he showed her his new sketches. He even joined an art collective, where he met people who reminded him what it felt like to create for joy, not pain. Months later, Ethan held his first gallery show, a series of paintings dedicated to Lila. Each piece captured a moment they'd shared, but they weren't about loss, they were about love, resilience, and the beauty of living fully. The final painting was of a door, slightly ajar, with light spilling through. Underneath, he'd written, "For Lila, who taught me to open it." As the gallery filled with people, Ethan stood back, watching strangers connect with his work. He felt her, not as a knock in the night, but as a warmth in his chest. He'd let her go, not by forgetting her, but by living for her. The crowd murmured, moved by the story behind the art, and Ethan knew Lila was finally at peace. So was he.